Fun fact, I have like dozens of drafts of the script of this review. Lots of them has been deleted, revised, and rewritten like millions of times until I can finally articulate what I think about this game. I'm still trying to get my hands on Rise of the Tomb Raider, and by trying, I mean sitting on my ass waiting for the 2016 release on the PC version of this game. Yes, for some convoluted reason, Crystal Dynamics want to become the biggest dick by delaying the PC version for next year, and oh my god, that is hilarious. The PS4 version is delayed even further next year. Crystal Dynamics, what's your problem? Roll the intro. In this dark reimagining of Tomb Raider, another dark reimagining of Tomb Raider, video game's most famous hero Lara Croft is given a proper origin story where she was still very young and innocent. She's gonna have an adventure on finding a dark and ancient treasure somewhere beyond a place called the Dragon's Triangle, which is basically like the Japanese equivalent of the Bermuda Triangle. What's beyond the Dragon's Triangle is a bunch of mystery, treasures, and a lot of danger right in front of her. It's time for the innocent Lara to learn from those dangers and become the titular badass character that she has been known throughout the video game history. Or not. You see, my problem with Tomb Raider is very big because the game's entire focus is on that particular aspect. My main problem is the main character, Lara Croft. What's my problem with her? Well, pretty much almost everything. Credits to where it's due, the voice actress did an amazing job. I think she is perfect as innocent Lara Croft. This is not for her to blame. The writing is the problem. Let's talk about how this game relentlessly and endlessly tried to find the most convoluted ways to kill Lara Croft in a crazily unhealthy number of times. I know what you're gonna say. Hey, she's being trapped in an island in the middle of nowhere. Of course everything is gonna kill her. Play the first 20 minutes of this game and try to come back and tell me if this isn't too extreme. Do you want to know how extremely abusive this game is? That's 27 times of relentless abuse to Lara in the first 20 minutes of the game. As time passes by, those numbers will increase and increase and increase. If we assume that in every 20 minutes, Lara received 27 abuse, and I've been in this game for 9 hours, that's a whopping total of 729 abuses that Lara has experienced. That's the definition of overkill. Okay, I sound like a feminist for pointing how a female character has been abused when men received a whole lot worse in other games. Okay, fair enough. Let me tell you why this is a huge problem in the game. Abusing Lara Croft in an unusually psychotic number of times is the game's idea of a character development. The game thinks that we're gonna sympathize with Lara if the game continuously abuses her into the depths of oblivion. No! You can't rely on relentless abuse for a character development. Uncharted 2 has Nathan Drake getting his ass beaten over, but he is still a likable character who has an actual personality. Isaac Clarke might have received a lot more abuse than Lara, but he still does have a free will and certainly more personality than Lara ever will. Whoever the writers of this game are, they have missed Origin Story 101. This is how you do an origin story. Step 1. Start off your character with a little bit of personality.
Work it.
You are unbelievable.
Did they rope you into this?
Nobody roped me into anything.
I'm so
What I
sorry.
told
Step 2. Damage the character in all of its aspects. Mentally, physically, psychologically, financially, everything. This is done because...
When we hit our lowest point, we are open to the greatest change.
Thank you, Avatar Aang. Step 3. Show the results of these horrific incidents that happened to the character. The character has to change into someone that they're previously not.
I saw young Americans killed by the very weapons I created to defend them and protect them. And I saw that I had become part of a system that is comfortable with zero accountability.
Seriously, Iron Man is the quintessential movie of how you do an origin story. Watch it. Let's observe how Lara has changed throughout the course of the game. She starts off as a very determined young teenager.
Sam, this is serious. Oh, sweetie, I know. I'm just trying to lighten the mood here. Everyone's so on edge. What are you so worried about?
I'm close to something. I'm sure of it. I just don't know if the others will listen.
Abused relentlessly and become...
Oh, God!
a determined young teenager. And ends up being...
For years, I resented my father, doubted him like the rest. But he was right about so much. I just wish I could tell him that now. There are so many mysteries that I once dismissed as mere stories, but the line between our myths and truth is fragile and blurry. I need to find answers. I must understand.
A determined young teenager. Oh, sorry. I mean a survivor. Yeah, because that is exactly what the game tells you right in the end of the game. A survivor is born. My God, Crystal Dynamics. Now I have to attribute everything that you do as you being incredibly lazy. Are you serious with that freaking floating text hovering beyond the skies? Because that shows that you're not an incredibly good writer. Fiction Writing 101. Show, don't, tell. However, Crystal Dynamics has a nice way to fix it, and by fixing it, I mean making it less triggering. Let's make Lara Croft a blank sheet of paper with no personality, because if she isn't a human being with free will, it wouldn't be as extremely triggering for all of us. I challenge you. Go and play this game and find me one moment where Lara is being an actual human being and not a walking history book.
That's precisely why we should push east, not west.
No one believes.
I've talked to Roth about this. There's no point in following in other people's footsteps, Dr. Whitman. Going east will take us directly into the Dragon's Triangle. That's where we need to go. The stories about Queen Himiko say she could summon storms. Myths are usually based on some version of the truth. What if Yamatai was somewhere in the triangle itself?
Oh, it is Himiko.
But look, the bowl, the candles. Why is she still being worshipped?
This island, it must have once been part of Yamatai. You were right, Lara.
The Lost Kingdom.
It's like finding Atlantis.
But this is real, Dr. Whitman. We're not standing on a myth.
Roth, what am I gonna do?
You've got great instincts, girl. You've just got to trust them.
No one leaves. The storms. They're linked to the power of the Sun Queen. That's what's stopping us leaving. The monastery has a ritual chamber. If that's what the Storm Guard are protecting, the answer to stopping the storms must be in there. A hidden river entrance. The boat. I'm going to use it to go inland to the ritual chamber.
That's all she does in the entire game. That's all she does. There's not that many moments in the entire game where she is an actual human being with actual personality. This should have been what the feminists define as objectification. Believe it or not, I'm not the kind of people with an unreachable standard. There is still some good in the writing of this game. So how should you write Lara Croft? Well, the same way you write the side characters in the game. They're extremely likable and they're almost barely in the game at all. They're all very memorable as well, and their dialogues are a lot more human than Lara ever will.
Here's the soon-to-be world-famous archaeologist, Lara Croft, in her native habitat. She's on the hunt for the lost kingdom of Yamatai, home to the fabulous Himiko, mythical Sun Queen, and ancestor of yours truly.
And when were you last in the field without a TV crew behind you?
Got 30 years experience, 2 PhDs, 1 in East Asian history, so why don't you just stick to boats, Mr. Grimm?
Ship, Dr. Whitman. It's a ship.
Lara, my little bird. I'd follow you almost anywhere, but that place has a bad energy.
Bad storms, more like. Makes the Bermuda Triangle look like Disney World.
Oh, don't tell me you're seriously
Reyes is right. We don't have the funds to piss about. It's now or never. Lara's offering fresh ideas and a plan. I'm the captain here. It's my decision. We're going into the Dragon's Triangle.
Why am I even here?
Lara is not in any forms of way likable, because if she is likable, then she's gonna make a sarcastic quip or make jokes or even laugh at something that she finds amusing. I know, she's trapped in an island in the middle of nowhere and I don't expect her to suddenly pull off Ultron or something.
You know, with the benefit of hindsight.
But she's human. Humans are desperate to find joy and fun in the middle of a massive tragedy. They will desperately cling for the light when they're at their darkest moment. Example, first Walking Dead game. You're trapped in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, desperately hunting for food, drink, sleep, and other basic human needs. And yet I can count a lot of funny moments in the first game, even though overall, it's a really depressing game. This one over here being my absolute favorite.
It smells funny in here. Like shit, right, Lee?
That was good. I'm sorry if I'm ranting a lot more about the story more so than I rant about the gameplay. There's a reason why I focus on the story more so than I focus on the gameplay. Not only because it does the most damage. In hindsight, if you look at the gameplay, it's nothing more than an Uncharted clone. I will talk more about the gameplay later on, but my point is that you've seen this sort of gameplay before. It's nothing really spectacularly new. The story, however, is something that has never been done before in a Tomb Raider game. At least not as serious as this one. And I really want to see how this goes on. I love the huge potential that this story could achieve. Sadly, this game is amazing at destroying potential. The game's story sucked, it doesn't understand the concept of an origin story, it doesn't understand the concept of a real character development, it made Lara to be a boring, uninteresting, forgettable, and a blank empty sheet of paper that is waiting to be filled with an inch of a freaking personality. The only thing that this game doesn't destroy is the gameplay. And yes, despite my long-ass rant about the story being an absolute atrocity to the amazing idea and the concept of a dark Lara Croft story, I find Tomb Raider to be an absolutely enjoyable game. At least when the game isn't being interrupted by its story elements. Seriously, the quick time events are ridiculous. Let's talk about what the game does right so that other game developers can note from this review and pretty much tell everyone how to do your games right. The combat. The combat is extremely brutal and satisfying. It takes a lot of elements from the Uncharted video games, since of course you're gonna need to modernize this game in some ways or the other. Unlike Uncharted, the cover system doesn't require you to press a button. The game has a very smooth and dynamic cover. By simply approaching one, your character will automatically take cover. When you take aim, your character will also automatically get out of cover and start popping up shots. Shooting feels a lot more satisfying, and surprisingly the bow and arrow is pretty effective. Role-playing as Oliver Queen is quite fun. Puzzle platforming. If you remember Prince of Persia, remember how unrealistic the platforming really is, but this one managed to keep it simple and realistic, akin to the theme of adventuring and tomb raiding. Lara is an archaeologist and a professional hiker. She's very well skilled in this sort of stuff. There's a QTE when you jump off a high platform, and you need to press that button to hang back up. This is one of the few examples where QTE is actually effective instead of disrupting gameplay. Some platforming sections actually do have puzzles in them to make things 10 times more interesting. The puzzle elements of the previous games still exist, albeit in a more realistic manner than the last. crafting, and exploration. Exploring the islands is quite an interesting thing to do. Sure, Lara has this sort of eagle vision that she can use to examine whatever is going on around her, but that's effective enough for this game. The game's crafting system encourages exploration into the area because the game's crafting system requires scraps and resources in order to upgrade your item. This makes exploring the tombs and solving the platforming puzzles to be more satisfying. Crafting is basically upgrading your weapons in a lot of various properties. There's a point in which your normal wooden bow will be switched into a standard recurve bow, and then later to a more modern compound bow. The pistol that you use will turn from a normal M1911 to a Desert Eagle. It's a very good progression. The collectibles. While I do think that is a tad bit ridiculous to scatter in many types of collectibles in the entire game, I do find it enjoyable to gather them all. At least personally, I think. In the end, while I do find Tomb Raider to be quite superior and amazing in terms of its game mechanics, the story fails miserably. Since this is pretty much an action-adventure story-driven game and advertised to be an origin story for Lara Croft, the story is gonna take up more than half of the game's space, which is why I put in a huge focus on it in this review. The game receives a lot of positive reviews, even from the users, and I can totally understand where they're coming from. If they're expecting gameplay, then that's exactly what they're gonna get. And that's what they're gonna get their money's worth. I'm not one of those peoples because the gameplay is a very basic AAA third-person shooter with crafting mechanics, puzzle platforming, and vicious and brutal combat. That's not really something that I would consider new, but as a pretty tolerant gamer, I can digest that just fine. In fact, better than I expected. What I would consider new is the story elements. That's what I'm really anticipating from this game, and I already explained how that didn't work out. For me, this game is a 2-star out of 5. It might be okay for some people, but I simply didn't like it at all. I really want to review Rise of the Tomb Raider immediately, but knowing that the game's aspects are pretty much not gonna change from this game, I'm probably only gonna review it based on the story aspects. That's all for the review today. If you like this video, you can click the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.